We just finished our author's book study this week on Steve Jenkins, so I actually left my copy of Bones at school. So Bones by Steve Jenkins is an absolutely essential book if you're classed as a science unit on the human body. Our district just cut that kit from our curriculum because it doesn't really meet any of our state standards, but this book is really worth a read. It's a finalist for the Children's Science Picture Book of the Year through the American Association for the Advancement of Science. I'd probably recommend adding some of the other Steve Jenkins books to your library before Bones, though, unless you do study the human body. I'm a big champion for Steve Jenkins, but I was pretty surprised that his Bones book beat out a nomination for Gail Gibbons' Alligators and Crocodiles. I don't know what the window was for when the books had to be published for that award, but I was really surprised by her new book. This is a departure from her blocky colored illustrated nonfiction books. Even the whole style of her cover page looks really different from books that she's written in the past, like Spiders, The Planets, or The Dogs. They're all kind of primary colors with this solid color border around them, and this is definitely very different. The graphics and maps in here seem kind of like they're custom designed for a lesson on compare and contrast. P.S. I had no clue that alligators lived, can't read backwards, that alligators lived in the U.S. in this little itty bitty chunk of Asia. I had no clue. No clue. And then look at this, to compare and contrast the alligator and crocodile. This is pretty amazing. I felt like I had read all the books on alligators and crocodiles that I ever needed to read, but this one definitely didn't skimp on the facts. Even though it didn't have as much text as a lot of nonfiction books do now, it still had great facts, like this is the one that I was really interested in. Oh, did you know they can actually, where is it? They get their prey underwater and then hold its nose underwater so that it can't breathe anymore. Crazy and kind of creepy. I think this is a good mentor text for students working on their own nonfiction, and it's also great for primary kids too. My one sticking point is this. It seems like oftentimes when you're reaching the end of a nonfiction book, especially one about endangered critters, they will inevitably transition to a section on why all the animals are dying. So it was a little disappointing to see Gail Gibbons follow that kind of a cliche at the end of her book, especially because I was so surprised with the other work that she had done. This is Art and Max by David Weissner. I hope I'm saying his name right. Just like A Sick Day for Amos McGee, which I talked about a month or so ago, this book has been really heavily hyped for the Caldecott. And there's this part of me that's feeling all college hipster, like, bah, if so many people like this book, it must be overhyped and not really that good, too mainstream. Especially with this book being so different from his other sparsely worded books like Flotsam, Tuesday, Three Pigs. I believe he's won more Caldecotts than anyone else has, any illustrator has ever won. And I don't know if this is my favorite pick for the Caldecott, but I think it's definitely a worthy honor book, and if it does win, I won't be terribly upset. Last book I read this week is The Truth About Horses, Friends, and My Life as a Coward. It suffered from an odd prejudice of mine. I didn't really like the font when I picked it up. That is the typeface that the publisher used. So I'm wondering if maybe my newspaper designer friends turned me into a font snob. I also didn't really think that the cartoony illustrations, I thought they were really well executed by illustrator Glenn Dibley, but I didn't think they matched the story in my head that I had when I was reading. This is a great response novel to the, oh, isn't this horse pretty kind of books out there. And I think that Sophie, the main character in this book, should somehow meet up with Catherine, the main character in Cynthia Lord's book Rules, because they both live out in Maine somewhere. So you should check this book out, especially if you are planning on joining a Battle of the Books team this year. That's all for this week. Take care, and I'll see you next week.